Okay, we're going to have a really quick video about how to use the type tool and do some kind of fun effects for the type. So as you can see on the sample that I've created for you guys, we already have a title and some effects have been used on it, but I'm going to turn that off and we're just going to build that out from scratch. So to go to the type tool, it's very simple. You go to T for type. It's down here. It just has a big letter T. And the cursor turns into, somewhat like Microsoft Word, it turns into a cursor that looks like it's an input device for text. So you just simply click anywhere in your document. And for some of you, if you haven't used the type tool, it's going to immediately default to probably one of your web fonts, and it's going to default to a point size of 12, which is pretty small when you're looking at a big document like that. So mine has not, because I've just been building something up bigger. But when you're in the type tool, as with every single tool you use, you go up to the control panels up here. This one to the far left is the name of your font. It's the font family or the typeface family that you have, that you can then pick from to pick whatever samples. Mine's going to be a whole lot bigger than yours probably because I have a ton of fonts. And the section up here, if there is any, it's often, what's great is that it keeps the last couple of fonts you've used so that if you use the same font over and over again, it's right here. So for instance, I'm going to pick Rockwell Extra Bold as my font. There is no other style of that font. Sometimes there would be a bold or an italic, and it would be a drop-down menu here. And you would just pick whatever you'd like. And then the size of the type, the actual point size is what it's called, is right here. And it's another drop-down menu, and you can pick any of these sizes, and you can also input manually the number of a higher number than 72. I'm going to put 72 because we're going to make this be a gigantic title. And then, so let's just start typing. It's this swatch right here that for me is a color purple. It's probably black on your computer or perhaps white. It is, because I use this color last, it is the color of the font that's going to be used. So I'm going to simply, you can see the cursor is flashing just like in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to type in my title, woof, and I'm using the ampersand instead of the word letter and wild. And that's how we do it. So this is now Rockwell Extra Bold regular at 72 point type, and it is this purple color. Now, if you don't like any of that, you take your cursor while you're on the T tool and you drag over it to select the type. And you could change the color by either going here or by going here. It makes no difference, and you can pick a color. So let's say I pick I'm going to pick something that I can really see right away, and I can always change it. And I'm going to say OK. If I want to move my type, I simply go to my Move tool, and I can move it around as you wish. And it creates a layer, obviously. You didn't need to make a new layer. It immediately made a new layer. And the letter, when it's live type, meaning it's type that you can still type into, it has the letter T on the layer. And we're going to talk about how at the very end you need to change that and rasterize the type. But for right now, we're going to kind of play with the type. I think actually I might want to make this even larger than 72. And there is, I'll put on my little handy dandy signal here for you guys if you want to take a screenshot of that. You can select the type. So I'm going on to Wolf and Wild. And while it's selected, I can go to Control or Command. So Command, Shift, and then that little arrow tool. Or on the PC, it's Control, Shift, and the little arrow tool. And you just go click on the little arrow icon over and over and over again until you like the size. And if you want to make it smaller, you pick the left one. So this is the one right to the right of the letter M on the keyboard, if that's confusing. And when you like it, just click with your, you can either hit the escape key or you just click out of it. So that seems like maybe that might be big enough for my title. I'm going to turn this off now so you guys don't see it. And what I did for the sample was I actually changed the color of each word. So again, I'm just going to select just the word woof. I'm going to double click here this time just so you can see the different ways of doing it. I'm going to pick a turquoise color. And what it does is when it's selected, it shows the complementary color, which is confusing to some people. And then wild, I'm going to pick a kind of acid green color. And see, it shows the purple, which is the complementary color of Woof and Wild. Still kind of hard to see, so I'm going to play with some effects. Now, these effects are not layer adjustments, they're not blend modes, they are simply special effects. And while you're on your layer, so we're in Woof and Wild here, you click on FX. Oh, actually, let's first warp it. So I think what we'll do is we'll warp it first. So I'm in the T tool. You can also triple click with your cursor when you're on the T tool to select it, if that's easier. And then you want to go to Edit. Oh, actually, no, you don't. Sorry, you triple click it, my mistake. And up here, again by the control panel, there is a T with a kind of bent archway underneath it. And you click that. And up brings this warp text window panel, which is really fun. And you want to scroll down to see your options. And so just play with these. It's kind of fun. It will, I'll show you. It will warp. I'm going to bring this down so we can see these things more. I'm going to go back there. It will warp it, and you can actually decide. You can just play with these scrollers and see what you'd like to do. There's no way for me to really, kind of tell you. There's no right or wrong, other than I think things like that, not so good, where it's a lot of distortion. Things like that, also not good. Try to really make it still be legible and yet have some fun. All of these are different. I suggest you just play with them yourself. I think that what I used was bulge for this one. I can't really remember. I think I did something like that. And you just say okay when you like it. Click out of it to see it. That's kind of fun. It's kind of reflecting those crazy, candies in the background. But now on my sample, I actually had to put a stroke around it, and I also had a drop shadow. And what we can do is, while this is still selected, you click on FX at the bottom of the layer panel. I'll pull this up so you can see it. So it's to the left of the mask button. It's FX. And you want to just click, let's click first on drop shadow, which is the one I use the most. It brings up a layer style window that is kind of a control panel for this. And there's all these different options on the left. And these are the blend modes that we'll talk about in a second. I would keep it at around 35 or 40, and you can play with the look of the drop shadow. I'm going to actually turn off the background so you can see what's going on. Hold on just a sec. So if we have our Woof and Wild, I'm going to go back to drop shadow from FX, and I will show you kind of the different things. You have to play with this because it's really an aesthetic decision. Let's say I made it a lot darker. You can start to see that the size makes it kind of softer, makes it more of a diffused thing. You just have to play with these. Again, you don't really want you don't want this, which is the actual shadow itself, to be very, very, it's gonna print darker than you think. So I usually keep it under 50% for sure. And then, so that's the drop shadow. If you could turn it on and off here. If we want to do a stroke, meaning we're going to stroke the outside of the shape of the type, you click on stroke. And this, now then click on that actual, that option of stroke. So select that part of there. And this is the color of your stroke. I'm going to keep it white. And if you just want to see as you change the size, you want to pick something that you like. that makes sense. Obviously, that's not making any sense anymore. That's not making sense. That doesn't look very good at 40 or 43. But pick whatever you want, and you can play with all these as you'd like and just say okay. And what you're seeing here is there's a little drop underneath the layer right here. It says effects, and you can actually just turn them all off by just clicking that back on. If you don't like the stroke, you can hit the eyeball and turn it off. So it's very editable, but we're not completely done yet, because this is still live type, and there's a good chance you don't have my font on your computer. So what you do is you right-click on the T layer, and you go to Rasterize Type. And nothing has changed other than now this is no longer type that you could edit into. Like if you wanted to kind of select it, you couldn't do it. It just makes a bunch of new type layers. So that's what you do want to do. So there was a blank one. This is what happens. You get blank ones, which you have to throw away. But that's how you do the type. And you need to rasterize it so there's no longer a T on the layer. It's actually going to show a picture of your type. Hope that helps.